All right, the 2024 presidential campaign season is in full swing.
Yep, and that means President Biden is on the road, expected to visit several battleground states this week, including Wisconsin and Michigan. And that follows some dueling campaign events this past weekend in Georgia from President Biden and his opponent, former President Donald Trump.
So let's talk about it. CBS News campaign reporters Olivia, Rinaldi and Aaron Navarro join us from our D.C. bureau to give us the latest on all of this. Aaron, let's start with you. First, just explain the importance of Georgia and how politically it's different now than it was even just 4 years ago.
Errol, this is a crucial battleground state for both of these candidates who are likely to be the general election nominees. In 2020, Biden won by just 11,779 votes. But what's changed? The electorate and coalition that Biden built, especially in the Atlanta metro area of minority voters, Black, Hispanic, Asian American voters, they seem, at least according to polling, to be less enthused about the president's record about voting for him again. And another quick thing to point out is there's no down ballot Senate race to really energize Democrats to vote for the president. You remember in 2020, you had two Senate races on there, the one that Jon Ossoff and Senator Raphael Warnock were on, that kind of energized Democrats because it was an opportunity for them to capture the Senate. This time around, no such down ballot race.
Olivia, turning to former President Trump, you could say went on offense against President Biden. What he did is he went into his bag of tricks, which includes mockery. He's mocked disabled reporters. Now he was mocking the president for, his childhood stutter. How do these sort of attacks stick with voters? I know they play pretty well on social media. I know people snicker at him here and there. But overall, it seems like, do people like the negativity? Do they not? Where are we?
Yeah, Tony, that's a great question. When Trump is doing those types of things, he's always speaking to his base. That is the most important thing for him, is for him to speak to those supporters. And that's what they like to see. They like to see that combativeness, that negativity, that sort of framing this between him and Biden, and that he is the more competent one. That was the goal there in pointing out the stutter. But I do want to note, as Aaron was talking about Georgia, such a crucial battleground state, and to the broader point of Trump speaking to his base. He went to this battleground state, but he went to a ruby red district in that state. He went to Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. And what did he do while he was there? He focused on immigration and Laken Riley. That is, of course, the University of Georgia student who was allegedly killed by a Venezuelan migrant a few weeks ago. That has invigorated the Republican base in talking about immigration, and he forced Biden's hand on the topic. That is something we'll continue to see him doing, forcing Democrats and President Biden to really talk about immigration, talk about that border bill that failed at Trump's hands, and talk about Laken Riley and Biden apologizing on MSNBC over the weekend for using the term illegals when he was talking about the State of the Union. So really, we'll start seeing more of Trump forcing Biden's hand on some of these issues, these hot button issues, and using some of that negativity, as you point out, to energize the base. That's kind of the playbook that he will be using here.
Yeah, Aaron, attacking back to you here, both Biden and Trump have their bases. They've got to play to them, but they also need independents, which are really going to decide who wins this election. Nikki Haley suspended her campaign. She did have a lot of independent voters, and now both Trump and Biden are trying to pick those voters up. How are they doing it, and how are they succeeding?
Well, Olivia can add to this if I'm wrong, but I do believe Trump necessarily hasn't made a concerted effort to appeal to those Nikki Haley voters. Meanwhile, the day that Nikki Haley dropped out, President Biden put out a statement saying that there is a home for you in our campaign. And generally, the Biden campaign and Democrats believe that his message overall appeals to independent voters, noting women's reproductive rights, trying to kind of neutralize that issue of the economy by talking about some of the manufacturing bills that Biden has done, as well as just making some of the contrasts with Trump on behavior, which when you talk to independent voters, more moderate Republicans, that's kind of been the one thing that's kept them hesitant about going to Trump, is kind of the behavior, the rhetoric that he often uses. But generally, the Biden campaign does believe they're running more of an independent, in addition to appealing to the base, but have more independent rhetoric and messaging points that they can use that will appeal to those Haley voters anyway.
And so, Olivia, let's bring you in on that point, because we know that as you shift from the primary and the caucuses to the general election, each side tends to move to the middle to get your more independent and less engaged voter. If we are seeing that effort on the Biden side, what is Trump doing that shows a shift? Because he also has to be more wise with how he spends his campaign money, considering he's up against so many legal challenges as well.
Absolutely, Errol. I mean, over the weekend at that Georgia rally, we heard Trump talk specifically and purposefully to Black voters, Hispanic voters, union voters, telling them that I have done more for you than President Biden. That's kind of the tone we'll hear from him. And he also said specifically to Black people, I have done more for you than perhaps any president, including Abraham Lincoln, which is quite a statement to make. But it does seem to be playing well with voters. I spoke with Jeremiah Hicks. He's a Black Georgian man who's voted for Trump twice, 2016 and 2020, and he's a union worker. Take a listen to what he had to tell me about Biden and Trump.
Because he's not really doing anything for us. He's more misleading. And Trump is straightforward. He's going to tell you how he feels, whether you got to like it or not. You know what I'm saying? If you don't like it, man up and change what you're doing. You know, and other than that, you know, Biden, he pretty much pacifies you and tell you it's going to be all right, but it's never all right.
So that's Jeremiah Hicks there talking about this broader sentiment that Biden's telling people it'll be okay and he's doing all this work for Black voters, but they're not really seeing that. Meanwhile, Trump is who he is, and they're going to support him for that. And of course, we've seen some of this in the polling of Biden eroding some of that support with Black voters, and we've seen some of them gaining with Trump. It's an interesting trend that we're watching there, and we'll be seeing more of that over the next coming months.
Really fascinating stuff. Good to speak with Olivia, Rinaldi, and Aaron Navarro there from our DC bureau. Appreciate it, guys.